So, folks, there is a man we have not talked about in quite some time, and his name is Steven Crowder. That's right, the least funny man on the internet. He's back, putting out small segments of his live stream on YouTube again. And let's just take a quick look at what's happening. He put out a video titled, "Is She the Dumbest Woman on Television?" Let's find out.
The museums throughout Washington, but all over the country, are essentially the last remaining segment of woke.
Also, I feel like his Trump impression is particularly bad.
Woke, the last one. Vestiges.
Yes, that's right. We have found the most divorced man on Earth. That's Steven Crowder, indeed.
Last ones. The Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been.
Wait a minute. Slavery was bad. More people should learn that slavery was bad, actually. I think it's good to hammer home forced servitude as maybe one of the worst evils a nation of the free ever allowed to happen. But also, I don't know. I don't view, let me put it this way. I view the ability of museums to criticize the history of this country as pretty important. That's like one of the number one jobs a museum can have, right? It's to properly contextualize the history and like spin a narrative that is, you know, based on facts, while also like doing justice to the to the oppressed who often get overlooked in historical narratives. Like, I think that that's actually a really, really important aspect of a museum in particular. And the fact that, like, he's upset about this is, I mean, it's not surprising, but, like, come on.
Please donate, chat. We need to at least somewhat moderate the parade of pain that's available this evening. BWA.
Paladin Lost, thank you for the bet. That BWA energy, very much appreciated. Getting us closer to our goal. Thank you very goddamn much. But let's continue.
Nothing about success, nothing about brightness, nothing about the future. We are not going to allow this to happen.
Well, so usually museums are about the past and talking about the past because they have historical pieces of art or artifacts enclosed within, and that's kind of like the number one job of a museum. It's not typically to speculate on technology. Though, again, if you look at like some museums, they do have some parts of them dedicated to speculation. But like the Smithsonian is not one of those museums.
And I have instructed my attorneys to go through the museums and start the exact same process that has been done with colleges and universities, where tremendous progress has been made. This country cannot be woke.
Also, I'm sorry, nothing about brightness. Like, why is brightness capitalized? What does it mean for a museum to be about brightness?
Because woke is broke. Hugs, not slugs. We have the hottest country in the world. And we want people to talk about it, including in our museums. So
why was hottest in quotation marks? We have the hottest country in the world.
Before we get, do we have the first Abby clip, or are we just going to go with the video? The whole video?
You want to set it up with her meltdown?
Okay, so we'll set this. So he was saying, and to be really clear, these museums just focus on slavery and not the great success, also ending slavery, not the optimistic future that America offers, which is why more people want in this country than anywhere else. I want to ask you this. When you read...
Okay, but like people aren't coming to this country to like go to hopeful museums. They're coming to this country to make more money, like to help their families. Like that's why they're coming here. It's not because our museums are so paint such a rosy future. It's not like you walk into every museum and it's a goddamn Tomorrowland.
Did you think at any point that Donald Trump said slavery is good? Or that Donald Trump, President Trump, even implied that slavery wasn't bad?
Well, I will go out on a limb and say it's not unreasonable for someone who reads "The Smithsonian is out of control," where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Also, that's such an interesting M dash right there. It's a very, very interesting use of an M dash for a man who has no concept of how to generally utilize punctuation. Anyway, yeah, I would say that in this context, saying that the museum is out of control because it's showing how bad slavery was, that's I would say that is kind of saying that the Smithsonian shouldn't talk about how bad slavery was, because saying, oh, slavery bad is sufficient to teach someone how bad slavery was.
Including it. Abby Clipper, we're just going to go with the video. The whole video.
You want to set it up with her meltdown?
Okay, so we'll set this. So he was saying, and to be really clear, these museums just focus on slavery and not the great success, also ending slavery, not the optimistic future that America offers, which is why more people want in this country than anywhere else. I want to ask...
Why is he being such a fragile little bitch? Because all Republicans are fragile little bitches. Like, that's it. Like, they can't handle it. They lose their goddamn mind about it. Like, literally, Donald Trump put like a conservative woman in charge of like the Smithsonian, and like she's just been. Oh, was it that lady from Florida? Oh God, not Alina Habba. The one who's in charge of the DOJ. I'm totally blanking right now. Like, she went to the Smithsonian, was upset at what she saw there, and then demanded that she be put in charge of the Smithsonian to like purge the pieces and like the reporting that she disagreed with. Yeah, Pam Bondi, thank you, Blueberry Bumblebee.
Ask you this: when you read that, did you think at any point that Donald Trump said slavery is good?
Yeah.
Or that Donald Trump, president,
that was his implication, yeah, or at least it wasn't as bad as the Smithsonian is currently making it out to be.
Trump, exactly how Abby Phillip took it when she had her meltdown.
I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Last week on this show, a guest...
History museums should teach us about the future. Stephen, honey, can you define the word history for me?
Noe Sunrider, thank you for the $5 super chat.
Shocked the table by arguing in part that slavery in America can't just be blamed on one race, and that museums put too much focus on the role of white people who participated in that terrible institution.
Let's just cut. Okay, look, she uploaded this.
Wait a minute. That she didn't say what you said she was gonna say, Steven. Like, it kind of seems like you want to cut here because she was talking about more specifically what the directives that came down the pipeline were from Pam Bondi. Like, it sounds like you didn't pre-watch this clip and you were taken a little bit aback by what was being reported there.
And it didn't go how she thought it was going.
Yeah, also that wasn't a meltdown.
Going to go because these people live in an echo chamber and they're completely tone deaf. So I'm going to go through this in real time. Just to be clear.
Yeah, love it.
And
love it.
Point by point, why everything she says is wrong, it's dishonest, it's misleading.
Please do. And I'm going to go point by point live through his talking points to show exactly how dishonest Steven's being. It's like a listception. That'll play well. That'll play well over on the YouTube. You guys love lists. I've been told.
Americans are tired of it. Let's just start playing the upload from Abby herself, thinking, hey, this is convincing.
Donald Trump says that one of the reasons for his crackdown on Smithsonian museums is, quote, everything discussed is how bad slavery was. What we try to do on this program is create a platform for discussion and debate that reflects the very real differences that exist in this country. It's what echo chambers in our society fail to do, frankly. But on this
topic, you are showing the context we were going to leave out to make her look unreasonable.
I know. I've cut it live.
It's important to say objectively, slavery was indeed bad.
Pause. Pause. See what she just did there? This is how she starts it off. By the way, she starts it off by saying someone here said that we can't just attribute slavery to one race. That's true, though. That's true. I don't know if you know this, but slavery is practiced by every race on the planet, except for right now in 2025.
Yeah, but also there's a big difference between American chattel slavery and how slavery was practiced in other parts of the globe. There's a difference between how slavery was codified in the United States versus how it was codified elsewhere in the globe. Like, and also, we live here. It's obviously more relevant here in America. Like, American slavery is going to be more relevant to our current political situation and economic situation than, say, the Roman system of slavery 2,500 years ago. Like, obviously, this is going to be very different. Like, leaving aside the fact that, like, when we're talking about the transatlantic slave trade, we're talking about the modern incarnation of slavery that occurred underneath capitalism. It was a different type of enslavement than had previously existed prior to that.
White people, Western civilization. It's practiced by Asians, it's practiced by Arabs, it's practiced all across the continent of Africa.
So it's fine. Is that what you're arguing, Stephen? So it's fine. Everyone's doing it. Hey America, everyone's doing it. Don't you want to get in on this hip hop hippity slavery? Don't you want that, America? Come on, be cool like all the other countries, America. No, I won't. Like, he's acting like it's like a just say no commercial for slavery. It's insane.
You can say that that's offensive somehow, but it's accurate. And right here she goes,
yeah, it's accurate, but it's also not relevant. Like it's not relevant in the same way like the existence of the Autobahn in Germany isn't relevant to discussing your local speed limits, like in your town. Like, that's not, like, the existence of the Autobahn isn't relevant to, like, your local traffic safety.
We don't want echo chambers. This echo chamber is not a good thing. We want real debate and the real differences. So let me be honest in saying, in contrast to Trump.
Also, Steven's got, like, the crazy eyes these days. Like, this woman is just, like, giving, like, a calm and collected, like, talk on her show, and he's just, like, bug-eyed going nuts.
Slavery is bad. Oh, looks to me like you're in an echo chamber because somehow you think that Donald Trump, or wait, maybe you don't, you're lying and want to misrepresent President Trump's position as though in any fashion, state, form, he implied that slavery was okay.
Well, again, I'm just going to point this out. Saying a museum is out of control because it talks too much about how slavery is bad, that to me would indicate that it's less bad than how the museum is talking about it. So I don't think, like, her read on this is insane. And it's not like she's being dishonest and, like, gish galloping about different facts. Like, she's reading the same tweet we all are, Stephen.
Let's keep playing.
It was evil, the nation's original sin. And it is impossible to understand the true history of this country without fully grappling with slavery's impact.
Pause. No, that's incorrect. That's incorrect. It is impossible to understand the history of the United States without first understanding the history of the world. That's important. You want to start off with that is also important. But I'm also going to throw out there that, like, you need to understand
the slavery in America is a key component of what has driven our politics for, like, the last, like, 400 years here. Like, you gotta understand it, and if you don't understand that, you don't understand America. And, like, yeah, understanding the context of America in, like, a geopolitical fashion is also very important. But when we're talking about understanding domestic politics in America, you gotta understand the institution of slavery. That's not, like, it's not bad to have a geopolitical understanding of America. Like, that's not bad, or, like, its history. It's not bad. but it doesn't invalidate the claim she's making, which is that if you don't understand this core aspect that we've literally fought our deadliest war in history over, that you don't understand America. Yeah, she's right. You don't.
United States, but that's it's entirely disingenuous. Let me just sort of make the case here. Throughout all of human history, the world practiced slavery. That's why. Again,
not relevant to the discussion of like slavery in the American context. Like all other, this is like saying, this is like Stephen saying, you want to talk about World War II? Well, don't you know the wider context of it is that all the rest of the world used to, also has waged war since the beginning of time. And it's like, well, yeah, that's true, but like we're talking about World War II. And saying like, oh, well, did you know, you want to talk about that one war? Have you considered all the other wars humans have done? That's just not relevant to the discussion of the initial war of World War II. Man, Stephen has really lost a step.
It happened in the United States. The world practiced slavery. The world enslaved people. The world then sold those slaves to the one country who had the conscience and enshrined it into their constitution that they were uniquely going to end this evil.
Yeah, and that's why we peacefully got rid of it. Because the founders enshrined into the Constitution that and knowing that one day we'd get rid of it, and the legal mechanisms turned, and then slavery went away totally peacefully, and not at all with a war that killed, again, the greatest number of Americans that have ever been killed in any war America has fought. So yeah, they had such vision that it took 200 years for a crippling civil war to break out. Yes, the United States was not the first country to abolish slavery. Not by a mile. But like, this is just nonsense. It's irrelevant to the conversation.
You want to start with the United States? Let's start with the world, because
we're talking about the United States because we live in the United States, you dumbass. Like, that's why it's an American television show with an American host talking about domestic politics.
Then, when you add up 1,000 years of civilization...
Yeah, King Kerplunk, ending slavery was in the Constitution. You know, the founders just wrote it with the invisible clause. You had to use the invisible ink. It's on the back of the Constitution. We have to do a heist in order to prove that it's real.
Let us not forget that the museum in question is the Smithsonian Institute Museum of American History. Obviously they focus on America. Woman face bombing emoji.
Charlotte Windnar's Pet Cat Girl, thank you for the $5 super chat, and thank you for supporting the stream and making this show possible. Very much appreciated. Also, let's not forget that, like, there are valid reasons to criticize the Smithsonian. You know, there are valid reasons to criticize, like, museums in America. Not the least of which is the fact that many of the largest museums in the country house untold numbers of indigenous people's remains that the museums have, by and large, refused to return to the people they came from. And that's pretty shitty. Like, that's a valid reason to critique some of our museums. Stolen artifacts, indeed. Stolen bodies. But too much focus on slavery in the Smithsonian is not a valid reason to criticize it.
Kind of unique. It's kind of unique that a free country, that a new country, in the span of only a couple of hundred years, ended something that went on for thousands of years everywhere else, including the cradle of civilization. I should also, one caveat, sorry. We ended it here in the Western world, because I don't know if you know this, it's still the way of the world outside of your privileged bubble. 50 million.
I love this, by the way, that, like, he's trying to argue, well, the West ended it, as if, like, America was the first country in the West to end slavery instead of, like, the second to last. It's just insane. It's just an insane delusion on his part. Goodness. Also, as a side note, let's not forget that, hey, people are still enslaved in the United States. People are still sex trafficked in the United States. That's still something that happens to far too many people. We still have legal child marriages, like another form of like essentially like forced servitude. And like, let's also not forget that it's still legal to enslave people in the United States as long as they've committed a crime first. Hence the rise of prison labor and for-profit prisons. So when we're talking about this, like, he's trying to have a moral high ground, and it's just ridiculous.
He's seriously trying to argue that white people countries are better when Europe and the Americas are the global center of the illegal trade.
He's also trying to argue that, like, you know, sure, these countries set up the transatlantic slave trade, but then they ended the transatlantic slave trade. So really, aren't they the heroes? And that's just, like, one of the most insane arguments I've ever heard in my life.
Million slaves on Earth today, more than ever in human history. How do you think that happens? You think maybe an understanding of world history might give you some context?
Or maybe an understanding of capitalism and the desire of capital owners to cut labor costs as much as humanly possible to ensure that they can sell products at the lowest level possible while making even more profit. You know? It's almost like capitalism inclines itself towards utilizing slavery.
Keep playing.
Hence why Nike has like sweatshops. Hence why, you know, the chocolate companies have like slave plantations. Hence why we export our factories all over the world to treat people little better than slaves as they work for next to nothing. Right? Like, this isn't rocket science. These companies operate here in America too, and use the prison slave labor system.
Because of their birthplace and the color of their skin, the bodies and spirits of black men, women, and children.
Yeah, owning slavery was capitalism. Exactly, Knifey stuck. That's why the transatlantic slave trade and capitalism are uniquely talked about.
Were exploited for profit and power.
Pause. By whom?
Capitalists. The people who owned businesses to buy and sell slaves, and the people who used slaves to produce goods.
I love how he found the most biased map he could, and still Russia, Western country, was one of the top traffickers.
Indeed, Nomi Sunrider. Indeed.
Who exploited? Let me ask you this. Who exploited them? Who enslaved them before selling them? Who actually captured them, beat them, and enslaved them?
You know, I love that he's talking about slavery as if it isn't an ongoing condition. You know, like, he's like, well, actually, the real people, I know where he's going with this. He's going to say the real people doing the slavery were the people in Africa hunting their own opposing tribesmen. And like, that's where he's going with it. And he's basically going to be like, the real people who were implementing slavery were the people in Africa. The reality is that, yeah, there were slavers in Africa, largely prodded along towards doing this type of enslavement by Western companies and capitalists. And then you have the people who perpetuated it and ensured that servitude and slavery, who were, you know, the middlemen, the transporters across the transatlantic trade routes. And then you have the people who bought and sold them as a secondary middleman in the Americas. And then you have the people who bought them and then put slaves to work here in the Americas. At each point in that chain, that is the perpetuation of slavery. That is imposing slavery, continuing, making the choice to continue to implement slavery upon someone. It is not a crime that is done in an instant. It is a crime that is done over the course of every moment someone is enslaved. And he's trying to, like, well, you know, the poor farmers in America, they weren't doing slavery. It was really all those bad brown people in Africa. Like, that's the argument he's trying to make. And it's laughably bad.
That's right, people in Africa. By the way, also because of the color of their skin, who was enslaved? Black people, just to be clear. People were enslaving their own people. So this idea that people
Now the miracle of birth leaves a few issues to address, like, say, that half of us are periodically iron deficient.
Salmon Moose, thank you for the 10 tier 1 subs. I very, very much appreciate it. Thank you for putting the show on your back. We are now 15 subs away from our goal. Everyone say thank you, Salmon Moose. Let's go.
People were enslaved exclusively because of their race. Well, hold on a second. How does that make sense when...
Well, how it makes sense, Stephen, I'm going to try and explain this slowly using small words, is that, you know how I just pointed out that, like, slavery is a condition that must be continually imposed? Well, so the people in the United States who bought and maintained slaves and slavery as an institution, they made laws to consolidate power around the institution of slavery. So in America, on the basis of race, people were kept enslaved, and people were then being forced against their will in northern states where slavery had been ended effectively. We're going to be forced to, like, hunt down slaves that had escaped from the South. Fugitive Slave Act. And those acts, those laws to perpetuate slavery, were enacted along racial lines.
Arabs were enslaving Arabs, when Asians were enslaving Asians, and when Africans, black Africans, were enslaving black Africans. Who profited? Who exploited? Yeah, slavery's bad, of course. We ended it. I think we kind of deserve credit for that. We did so.
I don't think we get to deserve credit for that when the entire demand for slaves in that way was created by the West and by American interests. And then, and I'm just going to throw this out there because people like Steven tend to gloss over a pretty core component of slavery, which is that under the American system of slavery, if you were a slave, your owner owned any of your children that were birthed. So once you have a large population who are that is enslaved, it is going to continue to grow. And who is enslaving the babies? Who is, you know, and I apologize for pointing this out, deliberately breeding human beings because they are considered property. Who's doing that in America? Because it's not tribesmen in Africa at this point. Like Stephen here is like, well, yeah, but you know, just buying slaves. That's a lot less bad than just, you know, making slaves. I don't know. I think enslaving, like, newborns is maybe one of the most monstrous things a human being can do to another. You know, like, just from the first breath. Like, there is not a word that we have in this language of ours that describes how heinous that is. To steal a person's freedom before they've even inhaled for the first time. And, like, I don't know. I think that this is an ongoing crime from the second someone is enslaved to the second that they become free. It is an ongoing crime. And Stephen trying to place the blame at just, like, the initial enslavement, it's a very weak and very pathetic attempt at deflecting blame. And honestly, it's weird that he feels the need to deflect blame from people who lived 200 years ago who were slavers. That's weird. That's a weird thing for him to want to do.
White Americans did something that black Africans never did, and still, all across Africa, have yet to do. Who's the exploiter? Who is the...
Hey, Stephen, just out of curiosity here, is there any particular reason why countries in Africa might have difficulty consolidating their various nation states and organizing around, certain inalienable human rights. Oh, that's right. There was a little thing that happened called the Scramble for Africa, where the entirety of Europe tried to lay claim to different parts of Africa. Why does he keep saying black African like he's Gorka? Because he wants to make it clear that he's racist. That's why. But yeah, no, the nations of Europe scrambled to claim parts of Africa, and then they butchered the people across almost the entirety of the continent in an effort to extract resources. Because at the time, the prevailing economic theory was that you needed to have colonies to extract material goods from those colonies, send them back to the motherland, where more skilled tradesmen and craftsmen would be able to turn them into material amenities and goods. That was the traditional view of how a country builds wealth at the time. And so a massive amount of wealth and material goods were extracted from Africa, stolen, and moved overseas. And that process has left wounds across the continent that are still healing to this day. Some of the countries in Africa didn't get their independence until the 1960s or 70s. Many of them are still destabilized because of these issues.
Selling them, or the consumer, who at that point is taking part in practice in the way of the world throughout all of human history.
Yeah, you heard that right. In Steven Crowder's world, there's nothing wrong with you buying and owning slaves. You're just partaking in an ancient custom of humanity. Which is, again, I would argue, a really weird thing to argue, because does it work in your mind at all if he's like, what's if you do a murder, you're just partaking one of the most ancient customs of humanity. People murder everywhere. How can you blame someone for taking a life needlessly? That's that's crazy.
Let's continue.
Were forced onto ships, bound by shackles and collars that ripped off their skin. One older man described it as iron entering our souls. Some chose to jump into the waters infested with sharks rather than feel that iron.
Pause. That's also disingenuous. He wasn't able to swim. The sharks were incidental. Continue.
Now, once they arrived on this very soil, they were forced to work by way of the whip, despite being starved, sleep deprived, threatened, tortured.
Imagine giggling during a segment like this. That's crazy to me.
Physically and psychologically, they were auctioned off, humiliated, fearful, and separated from their families and their children. Black women and girls were raped and sexually assaulted. Many were brutally murdered and mutilated.
Pause. Okay, look, all of that, of course, is horrible. And I'm glad that it's ended here in the United States and the Western world. Mm-hmm. I would like to see it end in the cradle of civilization where it still takes place. Yeah. Who forced them onto ships? You say auctioned off. Why don't you talk about...
Wait, who forced them onto ships? As if man, dog, as if one, the colossal demand did not spur action to meet that demand, and two, as if all of the people doing the enslavement were black, and that's just not the case. It's just ahistorical.
How they were auctioned off. They were auctioned off.
Oh, well, if they were auctioned, that's fine. That's fine then, I guess, in Steven Crowder's world, somehow.
Before they were forced onto ships. I get it. This is horrible treatment.
It's wild.
They were auctioned off before they were forced onto ships. I get it. This is horrible treatment. Is it worse than the treatment of the enslavers in the cradle of civilization, by the way, where, again, it still happens?
What are you talking about? Yeah, slavery is heinous wherever it is practiced, yes. there were unique differences between how slavery had been practiced prior to the transatlantic slave trade and how it was practiced during that. And I'm sure there are differences to how it is practiced now. In all of its forms, it is an unimaginable evil and a blight on human civilization. The thing that is bizarre to me is his inability to say that. And he's just like, oh, well, other people have done it, and, some people are still doing it. Oh, okay. Are you going to talk about prison slaves? No? I'm not surprised.
Wouldn't you at least give credit to, if you have two parties who are equally immoral and reprehensible in their treatment, wouldn't you prefer the party who had one of the bloodiest wars of all time to end it? Oh, that's right. Sorry. We're including the context of world history.
Well, I'm just going to throw this out there. A lot of the people who believed in the institution of slavery continued to believe in the institution of slavery, and hence why, the practice of slavery in the United States has continued to this day. I'm just going to throw that out there. And also just going to throw out there, I don't think we can give ourselves a pat on the back considering that we had to have a war about it in the first place, as opposed to just ending it and not having a war. I think that would have been better, actually. I don't think we get to pat ourselves on the back because half the country decided it would rather leave than give up slavery.
History, by the way, just to be clear, I know I'm moving too fast for you, Abby. Slavery's bad. No one's saying that slavery's good. This is, the word you like to use, nuance. We wouldn't want an echo chamber. Let's continue.
Now this is...
Yeah, it's bad. But when you're saying, well, yeah, it's bad, but everyone else is doing it, that you're attempting to deflect the actual culpability, the moral weight of the action, which is kind of you saying well, yeah, it's bad, but it's fine if we do it.
Endured for decades, centuries. And even in the places where slavery was not legal, institutions from our banks to universities were built on enslaved labor.
Pause.
In both the North and in the South.
Okay. Here's where I'm going to lose some of you because we're not supposed to say what I'm about to say. Okay. But it is the God's honest truth. This trope that blacks built America.
It's not a trope. It's a fact of history.
That black people are responsible for building America.
They did. They did a lot of the labor to build America.
Sure, there were slaves, and sure, they were forced into labor against their will. They weren't the only ones. Less than 0.3% of the slave population on Earth went to North America, just so you know. So actually far fewer here than, in Africa or in Asia.
I'm going to look up where he got that statistic, because that sounds interesting. 0.3% of slaves. I am seeing no corroboration of this. Okay, I think it comes from this, from an organization called Walk Free, Global Slavery Index from 2023, country snapshot. Prevalence of modern slavery per 1,000 people, 3.3, meaning a 0.3% of the global population, or 0.3% of the population is enslaved in the Americas. According to the 2023 Global Slavery Index, an estimated 3.3 in every 1,000 people were in modern slavery in the United States at any point in 2021. In other words, 1,091,000 people experienced forced labor or forced marriage in the United States in 2021. In terms of the prevalence of modern slavery, the United States ranks 122nd globally and 21st within the Americas. So you can kind of see here with total number of people living in slavery, and I'm wondering if that includes prison slavery. We are still one of the top countries in the world. We're this orange bar on this graph. I'm guessing that is not including prison slavery. Oh, nope. Actually, it does include prison labor. Immediately end forced labor of citizens by amending federal and state laws and constitutions that allow for compulsory prison labor as a punishment. and to occur in administrative detention and for private interests. Increase the legal age of marriage for males and females to 18 without exceptions. Ensure support services are available for all victims of modern slavery, regardless of gender, age, nationality, or sexuality. Those all sound great. We should really have a Congress that is willing to pass every single one of those. It's insane. So anyway, that's a long way of us finding out that, like, that's not what the stats were in the 1800s about American slavery. Those are the stats from, 2 or 3 years ago. Not sure where Steven's getting this.
Or anywhere else, frankly, in the world. It would be redundant for me to go through it. Is it any place that's not North America? Then the answer is yes. They had more slaves. But here, it was built off the backs of black people. They are responsible for building America. Okay, we have a controlled study here. Okay? Slaves in North America, largely black. Not only, but largely black. Slaves in Africa, black. Slave owners in Africa, black. Slave owners in the United States, white.
Now, one of the things you could argue just about the number of slaves due to the transatlantic slave trade, right? Here, we can take a look here. Africans carried to Brazil came overwhelmingly from Angola. Africans carried to North America, including the Caribbean, left mostly from West Africa. Well over 90% of enslaved Africans were sent to the Caribbean and South America. Only about 6% of African captives were sent directly to British North America. Yet by 1825, the U.S. population included about 1/4 of the people of African descent in the Western Hemisphere. So again, I really want to emphasize here how full of shit Steven Crowder is. How full of shit. And of the people who were transported over on the boats, like, millions of them died making that voyage.
Why do you think the United States is different? If it was built off the backs of black people, well, then Africa would have a leg up because they have both the slaves and the slave owners are black.
The slave owners weren't black. In Africa, they were capturing the slaves and selling them. So I guess in a sense they were slave owners. But the people who are the owners when we're talking about the institution of slavery is everyone through that chain of custody. It's the people who did the initial enslavement. It is the people who perpetuated that enslavement. It's the people who transported those folks. It's the people, like, the fact that he's making this argument is so batshit insane. Absolutely so batshit insane. Can you find examples of, like, a black person who owned slaves? Yes, you can find examples. To argue that that was the majority of people who were owning slaves via the transatlantic slave trade, though, is insane. Just utterly deranged and ahistorical.
They should be super America. They should be far ahead.
Also, again, hey, why isn't Africa benefiting from having all of this labor? Blah, 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 blah. Maybe it's because there was this thing called colonialism happening where all of the colonial territories were claimed and owned by European imperial powers that were, like, I don't know, enslaving mass populations of the countryside and chopping off people's hands if they didn't get enough rubber, and, like, massacring entire groups of people until literally doing genocides. Like, I don't know. I think that might have something to do with holding back the economic growth of the region.
The game. So maybe in the United States, it was built up in spite of taking part in the world history practiced slave trade, not because of it. If both continents have slaves, and only one has white slave owners who at the inception of this country said, we have the intent at some point to end this slavery.
That was not all of the people who founded the country, though. Hence the fact that there were slave states at the founding of the country.
But couldn't do it yet because...
Hence the need for a compromise that recognized black people as 3/5 of one human being. Stephen, Fuck off.
Really hadn't been thought of, and the other country has black slave owners. What's the difference? Why do we say only black people built America? And
We don't say only black people built America, Stephen. That's you putting words in her mouth because you're a butthurt racist. That's not even what she said. She's just observing that a lot of African American labor built this country, built vast swaths of this country. That people in the North and South of the United States of America benefited from said labor. And that a lot of the buildings and institutions we see to this day were built with the hands of slaves. Black slaves, Stephen.
why haven't black people built America in Africa? Something colonialism. Let's go.
And for
Yes, something colonialism. Hey, just out of curiosity, I'm going to type in a very simple question. How many people died in Africa during the colonial period? Let's see. Maybe we can take... Yeah, a lot of the initial results are just like, hey, have you heard of King Leopold II of Belgium and the Congo Free State? Let's see. I mean, just as one example that pops up, the Tavife massacre of 1888, violence and colonial rule in British Ghana. And it talks about how just on one occasion between June 18th and the 24th of 1888, the British colonial government of the Gold Coast killed an estimated 800 people on the small borderland between town of Tavife. And it talks about like it's a study on the massacre. But again, let's just take a look, I guess, because it's the one that is being cited the most in a lot of these results. Just taking a look at King Leopold. Let's just take a quick look here. Let's take a look at the estimates from the colonial period of just the Belgian Congo. Let's see. A reduction of the population of the Congo is noted by several researchers who have compared the country at the beginning of Leopold's control with the beginning of Belgian state rule in 1908. But estimates of the death toll vary considerably, mainly due to the absence of reliable demographic sources about the region, as well as the sometimes unsubstantiated numbers mentioned by the contemporaries in the late 19th and early 20th century, also because upon their exit, a lot of these officials burned their documents. That, included that data. Estimates of some contemporary observers suggest that the population decreased by half during this period. According to Edmund D. Morel, the Congo Free State counted 20 million souls. Other estimates of the size of the overall population decline or mortality displacement range between 2 and 13 million. Raphael Lemkin estimated that around 75% of the population of the Belgian Congo was killed over the reign of King Leopold II. So that's yeah. It's real fucking disgusting. That's just one country. That's just one country on Africa. That's not the entirety of Africa. That's one country. We're talking like over the course of like imperial rule of the Congo. We're talking like hundreds of thousands of people being massacred every year of Belgian rule.
Many of the white Americans who did not personally own slaves, they benefited from a caste system that concentrated.
Oh, by the way, just in case you're like, oh, well, why couldn't they just, build up a society? Why couldn't the Africans in Africa just build up another America? And well, I think maybe this picture might tell you why. This is a picture taken of different people during the Belgian Congo era. And you might notice something about all of them. that might have perhaps given them some level of difficulty when it came to building a new country. Their hands would be cut off if they weren't harvesting enough rubber fast enough. Some of these are children. Who did this to them? The Belgian government. During the colonial period. This type of brutality was incredibly common in every corner of the globe that was colonized. Yeah, that mutilation is not for trying to overthrow the government. That mutilation is for not getting enough rubber to satisfy your boss at work. So when Steven Crowder is talking about how, like, oh, well, you know, why couldn't they just do in America over there, huh? Well, it's because they were being oppressed by the Europeans that he's extolling for all their virtues for ending slavery. By the way, these colonial systems, again, just need to point it out, persisted long after the official outlawing of slavery and well into the 1900s, and in some corners of the world still exist to this day.
Wealth and political power in their hands.
Pause.
So,
okay. Oh, okay. So this is the no-win scenario because, as we know, we heard Joy Reid talk about this earlier in the week. Those who have benefited from...
Oh, yeah, that is also true, depraved ambiance. In a lot of cases, different governmental agencies or different organizations would pay for the hands of the Congolese. And so your boss could just come to work one day and fabricate a reason, chop off your hand in order to make an extra paycheck.
White privilege, those who have benefited from white supremacy, meaning even if you are not one but you're white, need to sit down.
Yeah, like scalping Liz Galahad.
And shut up, because Harriet Tubman was actually harmed by being helped from white people who were the benefactors of white supremacy. So I guess in this case, we're kind of glad that they did, that the people who benefited from it fought the bloodiest war in history to end it. Also,
Well, it's not the bloodiest war in history. The bloodiest war in the United States' history. And also, again, that war was not fought on principle. It was fought because the South attacked the North. It was fought in order to, like, preserve the secession. And Steve was just like, oh, it was a virtuous fight. Like, it became one, sure. I don't know. It kind of certainly sounds like the rhetoric Steven is using would have been really popular amongst the people who fired those shots first at Fort Sumter.
Look at this logically. If the people who still stood to benefit from slavery, meaning the people who didn't take part in it but were in a country where it was practiced, decided to end it, wouldn't that tell you that the United States, in contrast to the rest of the world...
Well, 30% of the families of the United States owned slaves, Stephen. So, you know, I think, and the fact that you're like, well, it took 200 years, that's so fast in global times. That's like multiple lifetimes, Stephen. Fuck off.
Was such a deeply moral people of such great conviction that despite their own selfish interests, they were going to die to free people in the...
You know, I would love it. I would love. Okay, Stephen, if you are of this conviction, I want you to do a segment on how great John Brown was. John Brown, a man willing to die for his convictions pre-Civil War in order to end the institution of slavery. A man who did, in fact, die in his attempt to end slavery and is credited in some circles with lighting the spark of the Civil War itself. So, but something tells me that Steven Crowder would not support the actions of John Brown. Yeah, I got that sneaking suspicion.
In the name of doing what is right. And by the way, how do they know what's right? Because they followed Judeo-Christian principles. Oh, wait, maybe that's why you still haven't seen the crisis of conscience from the noble black slave owners in Africa. Doesn't that deserve credit? And I know you'll say, oh, the British Empire.
But, you know, okay, so all of it, we're halfway through this. All of his arguments so far have just been, but what about other places on the planet. And that's not engaging with the fundamental topic. That's trying to avoid like the weight of the moral condemnation is already resting on your shoulders, or at least on the shoulders of America as a historical entity.
The British Empire, technically, if you want to say that ended slavery but they weren't even talking about it before it was a conversation here, and there were still plenty of
Wait, they were absolutely talking about it before it was a conversation here, because America was literally one of the last countries to outlaw slavery.
indentured servants throughout the British Empire after we actually freed the slaves. It was the way of the world. And to me, something, if you want to, hey, this is what Donald Trump is saying.
Wait a minute, what?
Of indentured servants throughout the British Empire after we actually freed the slaves.
Yeah, and we also like put like people in prison to labor gangs to like break rocks into tiny rocks, man. Also, just slavery was abolished in the United Kingdom in 1833. So I don't know where you're getting on your high horse over here about that, but that's bizarre.
It was the way of the world. And to me, something, if you want to, hey, this is what Donald Trump is saying. What about the optimism? What about the hope? What about the contributions to the world? If you don't look at the rest of the world and you just blame the United States as though it's the original sin, you don't understand that the only reason people are free, and they're only free in the Western civilized world, is because of the United States. Something
No, that's not true. That's just a lie.
that never would have happened and still hasn't happened. The continent of Africa.
Yeah, I wonder who really instilled the institution of slavery into the entire continent of Africa. I wonder why that happened. Oh, some colonialism. And it's actually, yeah, it is colonialism. Saying it in a silly voice doesn't make it less true.
Asia, and by the way, a lot of Europe. Let's let her finish.
Also, plenty of civilizations and societies outside of the United States and the Western world have abolished slavery in the past.
Finish this out.
When we acknowledge the existence of black people who operated George Washington's Mount Vernon or the black hands that built the White House, we are acknowledging the existence, the perseverance, and the contributions of the souls that white...
Hey, remember when they opened this by saying that she was having a meltdown? Remember when they opened this by saying she was having an unhinged meltdown? And the entire time, in every single clip they've showed so far, she's just calmly explaining her point of view on this. Like, the most chillest discussion of some of the darkest points of human history.
Supremacy sought to erase. Those people built families, they developed a culture, they were the keepers of the faith, cultivators of community. And they are the ones who deserve credit for forcing America to rid itself of the stain of slavery.
Hold on, let me finish this. I'm going to say something that's going to piss a lot of people off. Using her premise, right? Because they were under the shackles, and white supremacy is the reason for slavery. White supremacy.
Yeah, it was the white supremacists codified laws that stripped like slaves of rights and dehumanized them further. Like, yeah. That was instilled in our legal system. That was instilled at every level of society. It was instilled in like northern states that had like gotten rid of slavery by and large by white supremacists. Like, white supremacy codified the system where even if you were a freed black man, like, you could be re-enslaved by a racist who looked at you funny.
Supremacy is a reason for slavery. Okay, that again is just illogical when you understand.
Yeah, well, okay, that's true. Stephen Crowder has stumbled across something that's true totally by accident, and that is that white supremacy wasn't the reason for slavery.
Obviously, the best number is 0. But
Wait
there's
for
about
it.
3.2 million slaves doing forced labor now, and there were more than 4 million African slaves doing forced labor in the US in 1860. Just saying.
Yeah, that doesn't make me feel better, Paladin. Thank you for the $5 dodo, though. I will say, though, that, like, Stephen Crowder is inadvertently correct in that white supremacy wasn't what was motivating this. What was motivating this was the desire to accrue capital. It was the desire to, extract more profits from labor. It was what motivated this was fundamental element of acquisition under capitalism, right? And white supremacy and eugenics were used as supporting arguments to try and justify the inhumanity of that exploitation, right? And so when we're looking at this system, it's a complicated interplay between the system of capital and the resource extraction and the profit motive and the desire to justify unimaginable human suffering and normalize it via various ideological frameworks. And those frameworks include like a scientific element in eugenics. It includes the fostering of deliberately of bigotry in order to justify like a racial hierarchy that allows the owner class to look down upon their slaves and in a sense dehumanize them as lesser beings. And, this is a multi-tiered system of different aspects of society coming together in order to support the transatlantic slave trade. The fact that Stephen can't understand this is not surprising to me, but it is, I think him spreading this does a lot of damage.
And that non-white people practice slavery. But then you would have to argue, or you would have to accept, rather, that if the United States is based on white supremacy and that's the reason for slavery, American white supremacy...
Again, America is based on white supremacy, undeniably, considering, as it was originally framed, only white men who owned land could vote. So, that's pretty inherently white supremacist, yeah.
Is the reason that any black people are free. Because blacks and...
You can't argue that, like, our system that inherently disenfranchised people is the only reason people are now free. Like, I'm sorry, that's a dog shit argument, and frankly, like, jaw-droppingly insane. Like, this is some tinfoil hat, like, your uncle got too deep into, like, the whiskey at Thanksgiving and is now trying to like indoctrinate you into his obscure niche bigotry that he's internalized.
Africa weren't going to do it. And if it's so white supremacy based, let me ask you another question. Why is the only race of people on the planet in 2025, the only race of people who don't engage in slavery, white people?
Oh, man. Again, prison labor. And I'm also just going to throw out there that I live in Minnesota. Minnesota is one of the whiter states in the country. And it's also one of the hubs for, human trafficking in the country. And I can tell you, because I grew up here and have watched the news pretty regularly, white people are the ones doing most of the human trafficking. It's kind of like how, like, most of the people who are working as drug mules in America are unassuming white people who are just going to be unnoticed. That's how that works. The only way you could come to the conclusion that white people don't do slavery is because your fifis would be hurt otherwise. Yeah. And that's not to say, like, other groups of people don't do slavery. But to say like that white people are the only group that doesn't do slavery is insane. It's insanely disconnected from reality. Wait, also Scandia, Minnesota has some wild shit? I'm not familiar. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see where this is going. Yeah, a lot of sex trafficking cases up there.
People do it. Asian people do it. Arabic people do it. Name the... Yep. One exception.
You know, I am just going to throw out there that it is pretty weird that he's responding to a clip about American slavery, i.e. the institution of slavery here in America. And his counter argument is, well, other races of people do slavery. And it's just kind of like that. It's weird that your mind went there, man. It's really fucking weird that your mind went there. Like, that's bizarre and kind of telling.
Western white civilization, the cradle of white supremacy, according to you, is the only reason that any slaves were freed and that anywhere in the world, which is exclusively reserved to the Western civilized...
No, other countries had already gotten rid of slavery. You can't take credit for that retroactively.
...world, that slavery no longer exists. Sounds to me like if you're a black slave still in Africa today, in 2025, one of the 50 million people, or one of the Asian sex slaves right now on the planet, one of 50 million people, you could use a whole lot more white supremacy. Hope you see that white supremacy cavalry coming over that hill. They're making changes now, to be clear, at these museums, because some of the slavery exhibits, I will grant, my white guilt talking, are tough to look at.
God, why are they doing a comedy skit?
And you know, I get it.
Why was that? Why? Why was that? Why did that exist?
I wouldn't want to look at that either, which is exactly why they're making changes.
You should have to look at it because that's what slavery does. And you need to understand what slavery does so you don't fucking do it again. Yeah, you need to understand that it was fucking horrible. And I gotta be honest with you guys, no matter how hard the Smithsonian goes on demonstrating or attempting to demonstrate how horrible and disgusting and invasive and soul-rending slavery was as an institution, it was worse in reality. There is no way to recreate that. It was worse. And Steven's just like, yeah, I wouldn't want to look at that guy who got tortured by slavers either. You should be forced to. You should be forced to reckon with the fact that that man was tortured because he was owned as an object. And his owners thought that they could do anything they liked to him. You should be forced to sit and consider that in its entirety. What does that mean when someone could be owned? What does that mean? What are the ramifications?
It was funny if you were a little quicker there.
I mean, the timing does help.
Ah, come on. He looks like, he got over it.
A nice ice cream now.
Ice cream fixes a lot of things, maybe not everything. Just depends.
You had some things to say there, Joe?
I absolutely did. Listen, slavery was okay.
You had to.
I don't agree with him. You heard him. I don't agree with it.
You had to go with mint chocolate chip.
Yeah, exactly. Come on. You do something.
My favorite.
This argument, President Trump is making a very reasonable argument because
Who wants a grilled cheese?
Here's how I know. Here's how I know. Nobody was shocked at what they saw. Nobody's shocked by that picture. Nobody's shocked by the stat.
Nobody is shocked by a picture of a man whose back is covered with such scar tissue that every single injury on his back has swollen several times over. Yeah, what was all of that about an echo chamber, Stephen? Like, Steven's so afraid of getting outside his echo chamber that he can't even go to a comedy club anymore. It's really sad. He has to surround himself with all of those chuckle fucks who are willing to take a paycheck and then pretend to laugh about a man who was tortured his entire life.
That's that she was showing, or ships with people, or jumping overboard because of the iron in the soul. Nobody's shocked by that because we know it. We hate that it.
Yeah, and how do you know that? Hey, just out of curiosity, how do you know that? How do you know these things? Is it because they're omnipresent in society and even hateful bigots like you guys can't escape that knowledge? That's in no small part due to the efforts of museums like the Smithsonian to preserve that knowledge, to preserve that for us to learn from. And the entirety of this awful segment by the Crowder crew is to say we would rather just not know things that make us feel uncomfortable. Because they're weak. Fascists like this are weak. They are weak, and they can't even stand being a little bit uncomfortable. They can't stand it. That's why Steven has to surround himself with a bunch of yes men who laugh at every god-awful joke he cracks. They're weak. They're cowardly. And fundamentally, like, they know they have no place in a real world. It's why they surround themselves with bubbles of unreality.
It happened.
Right.
But
Yeah, we're over it.
Taught. What he's saying is, hey, can we teach that while also teaching that white people fought a bloody war that nearly killed our...
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, we're over it.
Taught. What he's saying is, hey, can we teach that while also teaching that white people fought a bloody war that nearly killed our country to make sure it didn't happen anymore?
Hey, so a couple of things here. One, it's funny that you're saying that this is what he's saying when you literally showed his words on screen earlier, and that's not what he said. You're putting words into his mouth to make him sound more reasonable than he actually is. And number two, white people weren't the only people who fought in the Civil War, you dipshits. Like, Harriet Tubman was a fucking general in the Civil War. Like, black people fought in the Civil War. Yeah, what are the non-white people doing during the Civil War? Are they fighting for more slavery? In a handful of cases, yes. Largely forced. Some not forced, however. But the vast majority are like splitting and running to the north and then joining to fight for the north.
Can we also teach that we have fought for 100
True, the Irish were also not considered white then.
60 plus years to make the very best of this situation that we possibly could. And it has cost people's lives. It has cost people's comfort. It's cost everything that they can lay on the line post.
Cost whose lives? Cost whose comfort? I just feel like we could benefit from some more specifics here.
Emancipation Proclamation to make sure that this country achieved the purpose for which it was founded. Can we just admit that?
It wasn't founded for that purpose. If it had been founded for that purpose, it would have been founded with that purpose codified already. Instead, it was founded with the idea that only white men who owned land could vote. Like, stop it with these lies.
And by the way, if that's not enough, it's been over 160 years, black people. Get over it and move on. Okay, I feel better.
Yeah, well,
I can't.
It's been 160 years. Get over it and move on, says man advocating and just viscerally upset at like photographs in a museum he's never been to and will never care to go to.
I believe I'm the most tame person here on the subject.
They wanted a clip.
I actually feel out of place.
It just pisses me off. Like, if nobody likes any of this. You said it. Nobody likes the fact that this country had slavery.
Yeah, but who gives a shit about what you like? We're talking about what the history is. History isn't the facts that make you feel nice at the exclusion of other things. It's not like removing facts in order to make you feel all warm and fuzzy about the past. like, history is about attempting to find a truthful, set of events and narratives for us to understand what happened to the people who came before us. The idea here that, like, history should make you comfortable, that's from someone who's too lazy to think for themselves. That's from someone who's too, like, inebriated on comfort, too soft in the hand to even begin to understand how life could be for someone other than themselves.
You can't look at just one piece of the story.
Hey, don't speak for me, man.
It's like, hey, they crucified this guy in Jerusalem somewhere, and then stopping the story.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, of course they did. Yeah. But there's a whole lot more that happened. You got to tell the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. But it'd be pretty weird if you said, for example, I'm just throwing this out there since you brought it up. It'd be pretty weird if you were, like, trying to talk about the effect of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ on, like, global history, for example. But then instead of actually talking about that or engaging with that subject, you were saying, well, but, like, a lot of other people in other parts of the world were also crucified. Many other, the entire globe was doing crucifixions of some form, all over the place. Like, why are we talking about this one crucifixion when, like, other people were being crucified? Like, why? You guys keep talking about this Jesus Christ character, but we have in every church you go into, you see this ripped dude just bleeding a little bit from his side and suffocating to death on a wooden cross. Oh, why the hyperfixation? Everyone was being crucified like 2,000 years ago. And, like, you guys understand maybe with that example how, like, if someone just kept saying that, like, oh, they're crucifying, here are all the other groups that did crucifixions, you would correctly identify it as a deflection from the core issue, which is, again, what they have done this entire time.
No, you're absolutely. And this idea that America was built by blacks. No. This is the only show where you will hear someone condemn slavery, make the case as to why slavery was ended based on Christian grounds.
Yes.
While also making a joke about how black people can't swim and a slave exhibit.
It's true.
Also one of my favorite memes of all time.
Yeah.
That's one of your favorite memes of all time?
Favorite memes of all time.
This is one of your favorite memes of all time? This one? Like, fuck, man. In your every waking spare moment that you're not at work, are you just dressed up in, like, a Confederate uniform? Like, again, these people are fucking Nazis. Like, there is no daylight between the stuff that they appreciate online and what the stuff that Nazis appreciate online. Yeah, like, what exactly is funny about this? Especially considering that, like, Rome is a city, Africa's a continent. Like, what are you doing? Also, like, cities in Africa are actual modern cities. I know that might be difficult to understand for some people who are virulently racist. But also, I would really, really like to figure out what subreddit they got this meme from. You can see a little bit of, like, the logo and some of the text down below that captions this, because I have a sneaking suspicion that this is from some kind of Nazi subreddit. I don't know if anyone wants to, like, attempt to track that down, but, like, damn.
Yeah. Yeah, if Africans built America, then why does Africa look like Africa?
That's very... Yes.
My grandfather laid railroad track.
Right.
Okay? He cut his fingers off while building the factory that he worked in for the rest of his life, a shoe factory. He fell from a stage and collapsed.
Wow.
Broke his...
Also, like, again, colonialism was doing some stuff in Africa. Just throw that out there. You know, when you lose 75% of the population of your country, that kind of leaves a mark on your ability to be economically productive.
Back.
Yeah.
Building the building that he worked in for the rest of his life.
Well,
not his finger, but yeah, no, blacks built it.
By the way, do you know how long it took to build the Empire State Building?
Yeah.
About a year. About a year.
Yeah.
I want to say it was 10. It's either
Nice
10
when
months or
OSHA doesn't exist.
It's either 10 or 11 months or 13 months. It's either 1 month over or 1 month under a year. The bulk of it.
Imagine we'd still be trying to get the permits under Newsom.
Yeah. Think of how long it took to do anything at the World Trade Center.
1 year, 45 days.
1 year, 45 days.
Now
That's a
listen,
lot of attention.
World Trade Center might not be a great structure to talk about how long it takes to do anything there. That one might not be the go-to example you are thinking of here, Stephen. Just saying.
Italians and Irish.
I'm not saying that we should have those pictures anymore where people are walking around up there without any harnesses or anything eating lunch. But I'm just saying we built stuff pretty fast.
A lot of people got Final Destination to buy steel lunchboxes.
They did.
Yeah. And building the tunnels.
Yeah, I mean, just
stuff like that.
When you see those guys
No
up
broads,
there,
by the way.
you're like, they don't even have they don't have a safety harness.
No women, by the way. That's the life right there. That's the life. No broads, just sitting there with your bros jerking it a mile up. That's the life.
It's like, yeah.
That is
you don't
insane.
Like that guy?
That's
you don't
nuts.
like the guy? You're like,
I always think that's the Little Rascals when I see that.
oh, he's a Yankees fan? Not anymore.
Just a dog with a bullseye walks out.
We got a job opening up here.
My gosh, it's a different breed of people.
It
It was only black.
Who wants my Twinkies?
This one's for Nick. I just threw this in because I thought it'd be funny. So
Who's the older dude? I think he's one of like the D tier like comedians that like Steven pals around with now. I don't know.
slavery can be funny. It's wrong,
But
it's good for a laugh sometimes. So this is
Steven, I want to know how you know that. I want to know how you know that, Steven. Not because I don't think that someone couldn't make a funny joke about slavery, but I want to know that because you seem to be talking as if you've gotten good laughs off of your jokes about slavery, and I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a goddamn minute. I want Steven to go up on stage during a live event and make a joke about slavery, and I want to see how badly it bombs, because this man is not capable of making that joke. He's not capable of it.
to give you an idea as to how slavery is still going on. A 19-year-old, and of course it's not funny that he was enslaved. The way that it happened, is kind of.
I mean, you know, maybe if you're going to crack a joke about slavery, don't use an actual case where someone got enslaved, man.
Funny. 19-year-old Chinese man was sold into slavery by his 17-year-old girlfriend.
Wow.
It was honeypot slavery.
Gotcha, bitch.
So they met at a billiard hall. The girl, Zhu, persuaded this boy, Huang, to come work at a family business in Myanmar. The Jews control the billiard halls.
Yeah, the Jews are.
That's horrible, though. Like, is it funny because his younger girlfriend sold him into slavery? Like, is it funny because a girl did slavery? Is it funny because a younger girl did slavery? Like,
It's all the media. The Zulus. I mean, the Jews.
And
control the world.
Then she actually.
Yeah, it is pretty telling how quickly they went to Jews control the world. When I say these people are goddamn neo-Nazis, I'm not exaggerating.
Traveled with him to Bangkok.
Has Steven ever been funny? No. Not even for a hot damn minute.
And
Hawaii, Bangkok. What the fuck?
So they went through this whole thing, honeypot, like, yeah, boyfriend, girlfriend.
Right.
And she was being paid to lure him. Then at Myanmar, it says Zhu falsely claimed she needed to pick someone up and just left the guy. And then they took him.
Goodbye.
And they
Why is this funny? Like, they're going from trying to pretend that they have the moral high ground on slavery to laughing at a man being enslaved is one of the wildest instances of mental whiplash I think I've ever experienced in my life.
Basically locked him into a telecom fraud compound in Myanmar.
Where they just work you to death.
They just work you to make fraudulent phone scam calls.
Yes.
But
I
think
did
about
that out of college.
At least you did it, but you did it willingly.
I did.
Yeah, you weren't enslaved by a Jew.
I was trying to sell rare corn.
No, of course it's not surprising at all, Smelly. It's like, I don't know. These people always get to, like, new lows.
Over the phone. I had to wear a suit and everything. It was like going to Wall Street. Really? Yes.
To do edgy humor, you need to understand how bad and why something is horrible. It's why Anthony Jeselnik works, but a 14-year edgelord's humor doesn't.
When I went back to college, a week before I went back, I see my boss.
I never understood how Jews control the world exactly. It's the age-old like anti-Semitic stereotype perpetuated by things like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It draws on like Jewish banker stereotype that resulted from like Jewish people being disproportionately like bankers throughout like the Middle Ages as a result of like there being a religious prohibition on Christians charging interest. Jews became bankers, and then you have like the growth of this idea that as their independent wealth grew, that Jewish money was being used to control different organizations and governments, and like the Jews had like this plan to like play nations against each other and then like weaken all of the other countries in order to take them all over and rule the planet.
It's funny because they hate women and this fool trusted one of them. LOL. Also, the only actually funny thing is the fact that Crowder's impression of Trump sounds like Alex Jones.
Oh, that's so true, Pluvius. That last point is absolutely true. Thank you for the $5 dono. Very appreciate it. The reason why they were bankers is because of anti-Semitism? Yep.
Us being let out of the skyscraper in Boston in handcuffs by the feds. Yes.
Well, that was a nicer experience than Zoo.
I'm on the phone trying to sell a double eagle, $50,000. I don't even know what an IRA is at that point. Oh my God, it was the best job ever. I never sold anything.
It's like boring boiler room.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's very.
Oh, yeah, no, Zero, like the entire part of it is like the idea of like blood libel and like the idea during the Middle Ages that was incredibly common that like Jewish people were doing like evil magic and like drinking the blood of children. That's where like blood libel comes from. And like because they had no nation and were like being kicked out of like one town or being purged from another town, the idea that they had no loyalty to like local lords or to the local lands grew in popularity, like, and also like it wound up being that like in the conspiracy theory where like they run the world, it, you know, pre like the establishment of the state of Israel, like the argument was just that, well, they have no country, so they're trying to take every country. Like the local Jewish community wasn't just like a small community of Jewish people trying to live their lives, but in this conspiracy theory, they were agents there to undermine the sovereignty of the local rulers. In the name of like building like the global Jewish country. That's like that is the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Essentially. If I'm obviously not going into full detail, but like that's kind of the thrust of it.
The official and
nobody making any money.
Vin Diesel come in, did you sell the coins?
Just like Wall Street though. Remember they came in, the feds arrest Charles?
Oh yeah.
That's just how it went down.
By the way, the reason the guy was freed. Huang was finally returned to China. There was a $50,000 ransom that was paid. But again, this doesn't always end this way. 50 million plus slaves on Earth. And they're getting very clever about it. Now, I think this is too much effort. I think if you're going to cross that line morally, which you should not, slavery is bad.
Right.
You don't need to honeypot them. You just knock them over the head and put them in a van.
Yeah, this is like the worst catfish.
Yeah. Which they do. People, human traffickers do that. Predominantly, they do it to children.
Ever. Yeah. And she got paid $13,900. Like that's a lot of money to get paid to,
Yeah.
How many people can you sucker into going to Myanmar with you?
And half that went up her nose. I dated this bitch. Listen.
That's how you ended up selling coins. Slavery is still a thing. That's the thing. I just want you to know, slavery is still a thing. And anyone in the United States who demands that we send aids for aid to Africa without simultaneously demanding that we send in the most violent fighting force in existence to end slavery across that continent should really shut up, because they're being disingenuous.
Can we pull that back up?
Yes. Surely that will solve slavery. Surely waging a war on the entire continent of Africa will make things better. Historically, America has just done so good at waging mass campaigns of slaughter that result in, enlightened egalitarian nations that have done away with slavery and worker exploitation, for sure. Don't look at Afghanistan. Don't look at how the war on terror has turned out so far.
Look at the chart in the bottom left. India, they're number one in something. First it was poop in the streets, and now this.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Where are you getting this chart from?
It's not the only thing.
Jeez.
Yeah. They just call them indentured servants.
That's diarrhea.
Yeah, but they're like, we thought.
Where was that one from? That was a different. I wanna look at the references. Do we have the louder? No, I don't wanna watch the full show. I just want to see the references. Holy fuck, Crowder's unironically advocating for race war. Yeah, no, exactly, depraved ambiance. Like, this dude is has framed everything throughout this video as, like, white and black and Asian and, he's talking about it already in racialized terms. When he's talking about America invading Africa with the most violent fighting force known to man, he's talking essentially about, like, yes, we must send white people to civilize Africa. That argument has already run its course, and it turns out that the civilizing effort resulted in white people, like, chopping off the limbs of workers and children, massacring 75% of the population. Where are you pulling these graphs from, Steven? Slavery is still reality. Is this one should be it. Geospatial world. Data Walk Free Foundation, courtesy of Forbes. But, like, I want to know Global Slavery Index of 2016. This should be a link to the full report. But it's so interesting to me, right? So one of the aspects of this, right? Like, Steven Crowder made this video in 2025, but goes and finds this article from 2016. And when you go to click on the link here to the Global Slavery Index for 2016, it just takes you to the most recent Global Slavery Index. Wait, what is this graph? How are the products we buy connected to modern slavery? Oh, weird. Almost by, like, a country mile, the products made in the United States are manufactured via modern slavery. Weird that, like, Steven Crowder didn't mention that at all. Maybe he should have looked at the most recent Global Slavery Index data. You can look at how it breaks down when it comes to cattle. Oh, look. Okay. In China, cattle is a big slavery. Coffee, electronics, we are huge. Garments, not even close. Textiles, not even close. Fish, We're second for fish. Solar panels. Oh, good job. $0. Palm oil. India and China. Gold, India and Canada. Sugarcane. Timber. United States is second. Cocoa. Coal. And this is probably largely incomplete, I would have to imagine. Countries with the highest prevalence of modern slavery. North Korea, Eritrea. Yeah, by the way, one of these days we should do like a deep dive on Eritrea, because like that place is deeply fucked up. Mauritania, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Tajikistan, United Arab Emirates, Russia, Afghanistan, Kuwait. And Russia has by far the most, by numbers, trailing only North Korea. Worldwide prevalence map. Let's take a look at the worldwide prevalence map. Sorry, I find this interesting. Also, just interesting to point out. Just real fucking interesting to point out.
Steven Crowder, and this topic is depressing AF. Here's some more pictures of Olive to make y'all feel better, peepo hug.
Yo, Smelanie, thank you for sharing Olive with us. Appreciated. But I want to make one more observation, and that is that Steven Crowder, at the tail end of that video, advocates for the United States to invade Africa to end the scourge of slavery across the entirety of the continent. And I just want to point out that the United States is roughly on par with almost every nation in Africa, barring Mauritania and South Sudan. And interestingly, Mauritania and South Sudan are both places, I believe, that Donald Trump wants to deport undocumented immigrants to. Weird how that works out, but yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion that Steven Crowder supports that. With that, folks, we're ending this segment. We're done.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.